I recently spent 94 minutes running in circles, pushing stuff, pulling stuff, lifting stuff, and throwing stuff, with a little bit of rowing too. The race really put me through the ringer. It taught me a lot about my fitness, about my competitive streak, but it also taught me that I got Hyrox completely wrong. Right, my exercise history in 15 seconds. Go. At 21, I was good at squash, but I blew out my shoulder. I cycled for a while. I got a rowing machine. Someone told me if I was a lightweight and 40, I would be good at rowing. I was. I won gold medals and I got world records. But I cut my hand and have struggled to perform well on the rowing machine ever since. Then I found Hyrox. Although I had spent a while training using Hyrox-based things, I didn't actually think about entering an event. Then I read an article on men's health while sitting by the pool on holiday, and that is what got me fired up to give it a try. So I got the kit to train at home and started messing around with wall balls, sled pushes, and farmer carries, all with the knowledge that I was a world record holding rower, super fit, super strong, and super gonna smash this Hyrox thing from the start. Alexa, what's the definition of hubris?
Hubris is usually defined as excessive pride or self-confidence, arrogance.
You might not know what this sport is, so I'll take you through it as I talk about how my race went. The core of Hyrox is running. 8 1-kilometre runs around a track. In this case, 3 laps. Now I started out okay, but as time wore on and fatigue set in, my spring lamb-like running style became the slow thud of a dinosaur. This is something that I am now working on thanks to the help of rower and PT Richard Wilder, who filmed me going around the race. But the real spice to Hyrox is what you do in between those 8 runs. It all kicks off with the ski erg, a 1,000 metre ski right after that first run, which is perfectly placed to instantly set your race on the skids if you go out too fast. Now I took it on the easy side, skiing at around 1:55 pace, smiling away, enjoying myself, chatting to Richard and RowAlong viewer Michael, who was also racing that day. Another 1 kilometre run, closely followed by pushing a sled that weighs just over 150 kilograms for 50 metres. All the training I'd done for this was with the right weight, but on artificial turf. I may as well have been training by pushing a pebble across ice, as the real thing was a lot tougher. The weights felt similar, but there was no glide to the carpet. It's possibly the strongest glue-like frictiony material made to try to push anything across. Another run, and next up, pulling a sled. This time it's a little lighter at just over 100 kilograms, but with 3 runs in my legs by now and the effort of the sled push, this was another one that had very little in common with my training. Run again, followed by what could only be described as a torpedo of destruction, the burpee broad jumps. Simple on paper, you do a burpee but jump forwards instead of up, and you cover 80 metres in the process. It's just jumping and squat thrusting, really. Simple. That was the longest stretch of carpet I've ever seen ahead of me. I was getting slower and slower through these, stopping for longer and longer to rest between each one. But here is where I play my "it wasn't my fault" card. My fitness and strength had taken a huge knock when I got a chest infection over Christmas, meaning I had to totally stop training for 3 weeks and then only had 3 weeks to try to build up strength and cardio again. Prior to Christmas, I'd been working with James Muscart, an amazing coach and Hyrox athlete, and had really improved my burpee performance, I promise. But the thin grasp I had on that performance soon slipped away with a few weeks of sitting on the couch, eating and drinking rubbish while I coughed and sneezed through Christmas specials, Netflix box sets, and a Terry's chocolate orange or 2. Anyway, I blew up during the burpees on the day. Something that I could do in about 5 minutes in training ended up lasting 9 minutes on the race floor. It's like when you see a car at the side of the road with its bonnet up and steam coming out of it, I just totally blew up and I could not recover for the rest of the race. Another run led me into what I'd originally pegged as my flagship station. People nearby would be stunned by my rowing performance. Other competitors would stop in awe and marvel as I showed how it's meant to be done. Prior to this race, every time I saw someone describe the 1,000-metre row as a rest during the race, I'd jump in like a petulant schoolchild and start arguing that that approach was just a weak way to look at it, and that all the stations were as valuable as each other if you're looking for performance gains. Now, I'm not saying that Hyrox athletes should destroy themselves during the row, chasing just a 10-second improvement only to ruin the rest of their race. But there is a large space for improvement when I look at the rowing in Hyrox. I'd say 90% of the rowers I saw on the day had questionable technique. And this isn't about speed. In a race that's designed to wring every last joule of energy out of you, most Hyroxers are just wasting energy because the rowing is incredibly inefficient. Overcompressing, yanking with their arms, not using their back, tugging themselves forwards with the foot straps, all of which waste energy and stresses muscles that just don't need to be stressed. For me, all of this came together as I came into the rowing station, still nursing the aftershock of the beating that the burpees just gave me. The important thing was to sit down and get the machine moving and then address pace. So just to flush the muscles out, I went for a higher stroke rate to start, 28 strokes a minute at 1:58 pace. All plans of a swoon-inducing row totally out of the window. After about 10 strokes, all of those videos and posts about how to use the row came flooding back, and I realised that the only way I could finish this race was to use the row as a recovery. So I dropped the stroke rate right down to 20 and held the pace to around 1:58 for the whole 1,000 metres. Now remember, I had delusions of coming into the row at 1:45 pace at the very slowest, whacking out a fast 1k, spanking my competitors on the backside and going into my next run. And here I am rowing at 2-minute pace just so I don't turn myself inside out. But this is why technique is so important. By slowing down the stroke rate, I could still add in power and hold the same pace that I was doing at 28 strokes per minute. And as I have a relatively efficient stroke, it meant I could use this to recover. Had I been flapping up and down the machine at a higher rate, not using my legs or back and wasting energy, I think I would have been a plate of wobbly jelly after the next run. It was hard enough going into the next run with my tail between my legs after such an embarrassing end to my row. But even though my runs were slowing down and the constant left turns were starting to really hurt my right hip, I got through to the next station. Now, I'd always hoped that the farmer's carry would feel like more of a rest, just two 24-kilogram kettlebells huckled along with me over a 200-metre stretch of switchbacks. It felt a bit like I was in line to check in for a flight as I switched up and down the course. But with the yelling from Richard, Denise and Mike to not put them down each time I got to their end, I managed to race through the farmer carry without too much alarm. Only 2 more runs to go, and the lunges were quite a social affair, it must be said. There are judges spaced out along the 100-metre course, making sure that the movement standard is followed. Alternate legs with knee touching the ground. And I chatted away to them all as I went, which probably meant I should really have been going faster. The 20-kilogram weight on my shoulders was more awkward to hold in place than I thought, and one wobble did make a judge start yelling at me to keep it up there, or a penalty would come my way quicker than I was moving anyway. And I was probably a bit too relaxed while talking to one of the judges at the end as I almost fell over. As my pride couldn't take any more bashing after the burpees in the row, I steadied myself and continued on. One last hobble around the run course, and it was time for the wall balls. Now, 100 is a funny number. You break it down into small enough chunks and it doesn't seem that big. But it's always there in front of you, waiting to be completed. I went into this with a plan of doing 5 sets of 20 wall balls, throwing a 6-kilogram ball up to a target, squatting down to thighs past horizontal, over and over again, a quick breather in between and off for another set. Well, that was the plan, but the previous stations really do take their toll in Hyrox. I may have done the training, simulations, and repeated compromised intervals, but none of that is the same as when you're under the target, the smell of the ball filling your nose, and your shoulders having something better to do than holding a ball in the air. Fortunately, the judges on the wall balls seem to have all been sent from above. All you can hear is shouts of encouragement from all of them at their stations, helping their current charge get to the end of their self-inflicted torture. And my judge Al was just what I needed. Each time I got to the end of my set, head between my knees, life choices flashing before my eyes, I'd be snapped out of it with his voice telling me, "I've got this." Another 20, another pit of despair interrupted by Al. I'm now down to reps of 10, but still Al's telling me I can do it. 10. I'm left with 30 to go. And I have enough brain function to consider that 5 is only a little more than 10, so I go a little further and get to 15. Finally, 15 to go, and it's like the end of a movie. I can't hear anything but my voice counting down from 15 and Al counting up to 15. At which point, I have the decency to thank him for being so amazing, and I cross the finish line like I've just got back from doing something a lot more exciting and dangerous than what actually happened over the previous 93 minutes and 54 seconds. But as I sat down to drink my free can of Red Bull and take off my timing chip, I have 2 thoughts. The first, I can't believe I got this so wrong. The row still needs a bit more respect than some people give it. I still think there's a lot to be said for people who are just wasting energy on it. If you're going to look at it as a recovery, row it as efficiently as possible in order to make it that way. But also, I was humbled by how much Hyrox put me in my place. Being good at one element of Hyrox doesn't mean you'll be good at the rest. Even if you're an amazing runner, which, let's face it, makes up half of the race, you'll still need to overcome the functional elements. So, my background in rowing was all very good for rowing, but in the middle of a Hyrox race, this isn't about rowing, it's about surviving. Sure, I wasn't as fit as I could have been, I wasn't as strong as I could have been. But even if I was fitter and stronger, much like rowing a 2K time trial, it wouldn't have been any easier. I'd just have gone a little faster. And that is what I intend to do in just over a week when I race my second Hyrox in Glasgow. And that is why I've already entered the Birmingham race in October when the next season kicks off. I think it's fair to say I'm hooked. Where I ended up with my rowing before I got injured, I was chasing seconds here and tenths of a second there. With Hyrox, I've got so much room to improve from this first outing, and it's me versus me within a community of other athletes who don't care how fast anyone else goes. They just care that you start and that you give it your all. So, I'm going to make a video when I'm done with Glasgow and I'll let you know how I get on. In the meantime, if you want some information about how to improve your rowing, about technique and some training workouts and things, please have a look around this channel. Until the next video, please take care of yourselves. Be well. Bye-bye.